I can add you to our mailing list. I promise you we will not inundate you with emails. This is just notices on our NPU meetings. A quick orientation for first-time Zoom users. When you entered the room, your audio was muted. Please stay muted throughout the meeting so that background noise does not interrupt the flow of the meeting. You can unmute on your screen or use *6 on your phone to mute or unmute. And on your computers, you could also use the space bar. There is a chat room for you to share comments to either an individual or to everyone in the meeting. For most of you, it should be at the bottom of the screen, or if you have the participants list along one side of your device, it might show up at the bottom of that list. Someone's will be monitoring the chat room for comments and questions, but we will only be answering questions if they are relevant to the topic being discussed. There's also a participant list, which lists everyone who is participating in this meeting. Your name will be at the top of the list. If there is more than one person using the same device, please include both names on the participant list, or let us know that there are both names on the participant list so we can keep track. Our meetings follow a town hall format. Most of our votes will be taken using the yes or no votes, which are at the bottom of the participant list. Please resist the urge to vote if you don't live in the NPU. Prior to this meeting, you might have seen the request through social media and email for you to register as a member of NPU F. For issues that will require a more accurate vote count, we will be counting the votes of verified members. If you have registered as a member but have not sent in a verification of residency or property ownership, your vote will count as provisional, and you'll have 24 hours to complete the registration. An important note is that registering on Zoom is not the same as registering as a member. You do need to do both. If you're a verified member, you'll see that your name will have a V in front of it on the participants list. We've turned off the capability for you to rename so that those Vs stay as they are. We know that this process for verifying members and voting is kind of ugly and it's clunky and it's going to be time consuming, but it's the closest we can get to requiring proof of residency, just as we would at an in-person meeting, as well as protecting your privacy by not asking you to flash your ID on the screen. And as time goes on, I think we'll get better and more efficient at doing this. You'll get more instructions when and or if we need to use this method of voting later this evening. Residents of NPU F may vote on any issues unless they have a financial interest in the application or motion. For example, property or business owners may not vote on their own variances, but can vote on everything else. If you're not an NPU resident, but business owners may vote if they have met the requirements as described in our bylaws. At the bottom of the participant screen, you'll see several icons. Raise your hand, yes and no. We'll be using all three buttons during the meeting. What I'd like to do first is a practice vote, and so that we can make sure that everybody knows where those buttons are. If you have already early voted, please click yes. That is the green check mark at the bottom of the participant list. Can everybody find those buttons? Good deal. I see the number still going up. We'll just give a few more seconds and then I'm going to close the voting. Those of us in NPUF know that democracy is not a spectator sport, so you all are doing good. Thank you. We have 26 people that have already early voted versus 7, 8 that have not. So good deal. I'm going to close the vote now and clear all the votes. Okay. Last instructions. These are important. If you wish to speak, please use the raise your hand function found on the participant screen, or if you are on the phone, hit *9. You'll be called on to speak in order that the hands go up. Be sure to stay muted until you're invited to speak, and then identify yourself so folks know who is speaking. We've got quite a few people in the room tonight, so it's going to be difficult to keep track unless you identify yourselves. And please don't wave your hand on the screen because there's too many people in the room to see it. I can only see a few folks, and so I may not recognize you. So hands raised, that should be next to, at the bottom of the screen, the little blue hand. There's also a reaction button at the bottom of the screen. So if you'd like to clap or give a thumbs up during a presentation, please do so. That's a good way of letting folks know without interrupting the meeting. And then so that we can all hear and get a good recording for the archives, it's important that only one person speak at a time. If you interrupt, you will be muted. Two important reminders, final reminders: all votes taken tonight are only recommendations to the City Council or one of the city boards. And I know I don't have to say this, but campaigning is prohibited at all NPU meetings. First order of business for us is the approval of the September 20 minutes. They were posted on the NPUF website and on Facebook, and were also attached to the email notice of the meeting. Are there any additions or corrections? Jim Hardy? I see your hand is up.
Move to approve.
Move to approve. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Thanks, Jane. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please click on your yes or no buttons at the bottom of the participant list. Okay, has everyone voted that cares to vote tonight? If so, I will close the vote by, there are 27 yeses and no noes. The minutes are approved. Just a couple quick announcements. NPUF election of officers will be held at the NPU meeting in November, which is next month. Nominations for NPUF officers may be submitted to the chair. My email address is at the top of the agenda. If you're interested in the position but want to hear a little bit more about it, please shoot me an email and I will can fill you in on what that role would be. And I'll be in touch with the current officers to see if they are interested in serving for another year. There are some calendar announcements on the consent agenda. Please take a look at those. There might be something of interest to you, for you. And then that's it for announcements. Let's start with reports from the city departmental reps. Chief Gray, you were here early, so I'm going to ask you if you want to give a report from Atlanta Fire and Rescue.
I do, thank you. I'll be brief. I know y'all got a lot going on, but just to give you an update and everyone an update, we just recently graduated a recruit class, and those members have hit the field and already making an impact and a difference in our staffing. We also have an additional class in recruit school now, and we're looking for them to hit the field, graduate and hit the field by the end of this year. That should be an additional 20 to 25 recruits. So that's a very positive thing for Atlanta Fire Rescue. As far as the COVID, everything's the same. We're still, asking everybody to just stay vigilant, make sure that we're doing our social distance, everybody doing their part, and we're doing the same here in the fire department. So we're still closed to our visitors, which I hate, but we're trying to, just keep everyone safe. And I know everybody understands because we're in a virtual setting now here for the NPU. That being said, if there's an emergency and you need to come by the fire station, by all means, please do so, because we're here to help and serve. You've probably seen a lot of fire trucks out and about. This is hydrant season, so we do it in the spring and fall, and we're actually out checking all our fire hydrants this fall. And that'll probably be going on a couple weeks that you'll see us out turning fire hydrants in your neighborhood. As far as fire safety, I know everybody has heard me say, and all the other battalion chiefs that report out, but we're still emphasizing on closed door campaign. So when you go to sleep at night, make sure you close your bedroom doors. It's going to help if there is a fire. It's going to help in the event that it's going to buy some more time for us to get there and for you guys to stay safe. That being said, we always mention smoke detectors, but I want to overemphasize the importance of carbon monoxide detectors. Moving into the winter months, if you don't have a carbon monoxide detector, I recommend that we get one. If you need one, I know that we're doing the smoke alarm and the smoke detectors. Currently, we don't have the CO detectors, but you can get them at your local hardware stores. And they're for what they do and the way they can save your lives, they're a minimal amount of money, and they're well worth the money. So I highly recommend that, and make sure your batteries are good in your detectors. And then last but certainly not least, weekend before last, when we had the hurricane come through, was a tropical depression and dropped all the rain on us Saturday. Our Swiftwater team stationed at Atlantic Station actually did a phenomenal job in conjunction with the rest of the stations around the city. We had 12 to 15 actual water rescues during that 12-hour period of time. So they really did a phenomenal job, worked all through the night. Just at Battalion 3, we usually average about 60 to 70, maybe 80 calls a shift. That particular shift, we had 5 fire stations that ran over 150 calls. Wow. So it was a really, really busy night. And I just wanted to make sure that I shared that with you guys, that Company 11 and the other stations really did a phenomenal job. And that's all I have from Atlanta Fire. I appreciate y'all allowing me to speak. And if there's any questions, please let me know, and I'll see if I can answer them.
Any questions for the chief?
Yes, if I may. Stephen Rampton.
Go ahead.
I'll lower my hand. Hey, Chief, great. Thank you so much for what you do, man. My next door neighbor's house was saved by you guys a few years ago, and I'll never forget the professionalism I saw. As far as the CO2 detectors go, would you recommend placement of those in a multi-level house? Where would you place those? And that's my question. Thank you.
So they'll have the manufacturing instructions on as far as the placement and where they need to be. I would just recommend in the kitchen area, or if you have, water heater, and I don't know how your house is laid out, but if it's multi-story, I would have one on each level of the house.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Is the water heater a particularly vulnerable area for that?
It is, if it's gas. If your house is total electric, then obviously you're not going to have the issue with the carbon monoxide. So it's going to be your gas appliances, your gas heat, water heater, things of that nature that could cause the issue.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Anyone else, please raise your hand. Okay, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Atlanta Police Department, Major Reese, I saw you sneak in here. Well, maybe you didn't sneak.
I was gonna say I didn't sneak in. I tried to beat Major Senzer here from Zone 2. I don't know if I was successful or not, but good evening, everybody. As you know, this is now my second NPU F meeting. It's my time here in Zone 6. So the one thing I did want to go over, I think we talked about it last time. I'm not 100% sure, but we had a little bit of a burglary issue down there in on North Highland, 806 North Highland, 794 North Highland, and 842. Well, I wanted to bring some good news. So in regards to one of the locations that was hit multiple times, we were able to identify and make charges on a Demetrius Holt. So we cleared 3 different burglaries with that. We also believe that he was responsible for the one at 794, though we don't currently have enough information to have an arrest warrant for that, but we're still working it. The camera wasn't great, and there was not good fingerprint evidence, but nonetheless, we're not going to give up on that. So, but I think it's important to note, and I had talked with Kay, and I think she passed some of the information out, and they're going to track him through the court system. He's pretty prolific. He has a pretty significant arrest record. So they're going to make sure that the court system treats him as such, or watches his case throughout as such. So I wanted to make sure I let you guys know that. From Zone 6, I'm sorry, did somebody have a question?
No, I don't see any hands up. Go ahead.
Gotcha. So, but that's important for us. And then, of course, we are up on the Chester Bridge block. We do have some things going on up there that, of course, you guys probably have concerns about. But just know I can't talk about everything and exactly what we're doing, but just know it is on our agenda, and we are trying to address some things in a very specific manner. So hopefully one of these, maybe next meeting, we'll be able to come back with some results, if you know what I'm saying. So with that, we don't really need to get into specific crime stats too much from my perspective, but I'll open it up for any questions from my half of the NPU if anybody has any.
Does anyone have any questions? Please raise your hand.
Stephen?
Hey, me again, sorry. There's a petition floating around social media from another neighborhood association about something about reopening city courts so that drag racers can be prosecuted through the court system. Do you have any comment on that? Is there, I'm not aware of the situation, and the drag racing, is still horrible in the neighborhood. So are they not open? Do you have any comment on that?
So, well, I'll leave that for our council president,
Okay.
Ms. Moore. But I will say I support the court system, and I would always be happy if they were open.
Okay, so they are not open now, and there's no cases that go into City of Atlanta court. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. And whoever you just mentioned, I hope they'll address that when their time comes. Thank you.
That would be Council Member or Council President Felicia Moore, who has joined us this evening. We'll give her a chance.
Would you like me to come in now,
Yeah,
Madam Chair?
yeah. Thank you, Felicia,
Thank you,
for being here.
No problem. So yes, the courts are closed. As you all know, the City Hall is.
You just muted yourself, Chairman Moore. Sorry.
All right.
Hey.
So I said I'll just kind of put my report in there so I won't have to come back. City Hall is closed and we're still meeting remotely, the City Council. The courts are also closed. They're closed not only because City Hall is closed, but there was a judicial state of emergency issued by the chief judge, the judge of judges. And so that has lifted. They are now in the process of trying to reopen and figure out how they're going to do it safely and virtually in some ways and others. And so the last report we had at a public safety committee is that they are trying to get it open by the end of October, which is this month. But there was no promise on to the date. They're trying to get it done by then. As it relates to the street racers, the chief judge of our municipal court issued an order where he said that if people were arrested for street racing, that they would not be able to get a signature bond. As you all may remember, the city and the city council passed the cash bail thing where you can get bonded out. Well, they're saying if you're arrested for that offense because he has declared it a public nuisance, that they would be held until they can get in front of a judge. There's very limited court taking place. And so that can be from 24 to 48 hours, and they would have to stay in jail until they got in front of a judge. But everybody wants our municipal court to find a way to open and open safely for the employees as well as the public that will come in there, because we're backed up on everything from code enforcement cases to traffic offenses, which we handle a lot of. But as it relates to the racers, if they are arrested, they will be held until they get in front of a judge within 24 to 48 hours, depending on the day or time that they're arrested. I hope that answers your question.
It does, and thank you. Do you know, are the cars impounded as well? If they are,
I do think that they are impounded, but they're not held. People want them held on a longer period of time. And so we have some limitations in state law. I have been meeting with, I've got another group to meet with some state legislators and others to look if we can change the law that allows us to impound or hold the vehicle, maybe up until the time when the court, when they go to court and the determination is made in court. So we're trying our best to try to hold on to the vehicles. I would like to see us be able to, particularly for repeat offenders, to seize and take the vehicle away. But you know, some people think that's a bit stiff. But I think for me, unless we attach it to their prized possession, which are these cars, we don't disincentivize them to continue to do this. They can pay the bond, they can get the tickets, and they right back out on the street.
right. Thank you for the comment, and I'll just end it by saying I would like to see the behavior stopped. I don't think anyone here wants to see anyone's life messed up and ruined or whatever. I would just like to see the behavior stopped, and I don't envy your position. And thank you for commenting.
Thank you. And to the chair, I left all my contact information in the chat, so I don't have to come back for my presentation. I'm going to listen for a while, and then I'll go on to my next meeting. But if anybody has any further questions, I'll take them.
Thank you. We're so glad that you're here with us. I see one other hand that's raised, and I apologize if I mispronounced the name. Rawa Tasau. Do you have a question for Council President Moore?
Yes, hi. Yeah, my name is Rahwa. But it's either for Council President Moore or for Major Rise. Is it Rise or Reeves?
Reese.
Reeves. I recently learned about the expansion of the pre-arrest diversion program. Can you give a little bit more information on that? Because what I read was that it's expanding to be available for residents to use through 311. And it was something that the police department was looking forward to incorporating into their practices to avoid unnecessary incarceration of minor offenses. So.
Sure. No, you're right on that. I can't really speak to the expansion. I know they are discussing. I don't know if it's in place yet or if they have the personnel, but it is a very good program. I've been kind of thrust into it here in Zone 6, where it's been running, and it appears to have been very successful. Kay can tell you, we had conversations just today about specific individuals and the opportunity for the PAD to, as it states, divert, right? So we have a significant issue with homelessness, right? And majority of their crimes, if you want to refer to it as that, are quality of life issues, and they don't necessarily need to go to jail for that. And so, as you stated, the diversion program allows them to either get mental health or substance abuse, things of that nature. So it's in place in Zone 6. We use it quite frequently. I talk with the director, Denise, almost daily, and we're in constant communication otherwise via email. Kay, like I said before, has been involved in some of the conversations, and I'm very grateful for her and basically anybody else's assistance with some of these folks that are hard to find sometimes, even after they get in the program. Again, what you got to understand is it's their choice, right? So if they're faced with either incarceration or some type of assistance, they have to make the choice to go through that assistance. And they may make it immediately, but then they fall out of it. So it's a process that we don't give up on just because they don't come to an appointment or something like that. We really strive, and the PAD department strives to go find them again and continue to offer them services, because they don't necessarily accept it on the first time. They may accept it, but they don't actually go through with it. And so, but we don't, and they don't give up after the first try. So I hope that sort of answers your question.
I want to further answer it. It was expanded by the city council citywide, and they are trying to ramp up to get it to every zone. And they are in the process of working with 311 to get where people can call into that system, but they're not quite there yet.
And just one final thing I'll add, Debbie and I have been in contact with Denise White, the director of the program, and we've discussed she will come to an NPU meeting when they're ready to roll that 311 out, or one of their people will come and they'll explain the program to us.
Okay, thanks. I think it's a great idea, and I think that I'm excited that it's now expanded to include our zone. So cool, thanks.
We are too. Great, thank you. Jack White, I see your hand up.
I wanted to yes, I wanted to thank council president for being here. I listen in to a fair number of issues at NPU meetings, and I'm not sure I've ever been on an NPU listening session where the council president wasn't there, and it's makes her rather unique in 30 years of my own experience with people in her position, and I certainly appreciate it. Not only that, she actually knows how the daggum city works at many detail levels, which is extraordinarily useful. So thanks a lot, Felicia. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jack. Major Sensor from Zone 2. Did you have a report that you wanted to share?
Good evening. Yeah, I think Major Reese and Council President Moore touched on a lot of the talking points here, and I concur that I can review the crime stats, the Part 1 crime stats for NPU F, and but it's irrelevant when you're dealing with quality of life issues that impact people's perception of lawlessness throughout the city, and the street racing continues to be the biggest challenge for us. I concur that until courts are open, that's been the biggest impediment for us to move forward and be successful with street racing in other areas. So we're really looking forward to the courts being open. Judge Jackson's emergency bond procedure was also a step in the right direction to hold people accountable who were arrested for street racing offenses. But yeah, the courts need to get back quickly for us to start being successful with it. NPU F falls in Zone 2 and Zone 6. I've got the northern part of NPU F, and Major Reese and I share some common issues, one being the street racing. We do have some unique issues related to some specific problematic clubs in our respective zones. And as Major Reese pointed out, we've been working on those areas, one being Lure, the other one being, Man Cave. And we're doing the best we can with the resources that we have. We're continuing to engage license and permits to do details with them at those locations to have a bigger impact moving forward. So yeah, I don't have anything else. If anybody has any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them.
Anyone have any questions? Rawa?
Yeah, me again. Sorry, one more question. Hey, Major Sensor, how are you?
Hey.
You mentioned Man Cave. It's right around the corner from where I live, from my house. And I've heard some things about it. Can you expand on what's going on with it and efforts to, and just like local, like you said, Lure and some of the other clubs that are causing some issues over here?
Yeah, well, the issues with Man Cave, Fortunately, they're intermittent. Unfortunately, they're intermittent in that, we have to, when we do our investigations, we do our investigations usually when the clubs are open, so we can find out exactly what's going on. And they don't have a set schedule. So that's been one of the main challenges for dealing with that location. Allure, they just, the LRB imposed a $2,500 fine and a 5-day suspension of their liquor license, which is, more or less just a slap on the wrist for that club. But, we just got to continue to chip away, and, hopefully those fines and suspensions will increase and change the behavior. So, we are familiar with the locations, some of the stuff that happens in and around, not just at the club, but, on the side streets that kind of, related to the clientele that come to the locations. We understand that it's not just inside, it has a direct impact on the neighborhood, whether it's parking or, behavior that's not too savory that we see. So those are the things that we try and deal with on a street level. And then, of course, on the back end, we engage license and permits to do some more in-depth investigations.
Thanks.
Thank you. I have 2 more hands up. June Newmark. June, you need to unmute yourself, please.
Okay, I'm particularly interested in the recent clean out of the tent city on Sidney Marcus, and I want to know the long range effect of that.
Yeah, so I'm glad you teed that up. Depending on who you speak with, you'll get different answers on whether we leave the homeless in place, or whether we go into an area and clean up and ask them to leave. And of course, before any action is taken, we bring in our HOPE team and other resources to offer services to those willing to accept them. And unfortunately, it's been a big challenge is to get the people who are living in these encampments the services that they so desperately need. But unfortunately, it's not what they may want at the time. So that's been the number one challenge. But that particular encampment had grown so big, and I'd done a tour with GDOT in there before the cleanup, and they were horrified with the conditions. It was deplorable, just completely unsanitary. I don't even want to describe it. It'll turn your stomach. But that was the main impetus for us having taken GDOT up there, and the main reason for them doing the cleanup. Now we understand that when we do a cleanup in that area, that they've got to go somewhere. If they're not taking advantage of the services, they're probably going to go to another encampment. So we are fully aware of that, but it does come to a point where the conditions are so deplorable that we have to go in there and clean up, and that's what GDOT's assessment was.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Jim Hardy, last question.
Not really a question, a comment. I, along with several of us, attended the Zoom license review board hearing on Allure, due cause hearing on Allure. And I was very, very, very disappointed that they did not allow the NPU representative to speak at that particular meeting. In fact, it appeared to several of us that they really didn't have any rules set or any written rules for the conduct of their meeting, and that was very disappointing. And from my many years of public service, it was unprofessional as heck. That's a comment for you, Major, and also for Council President Moore, and I see Council Member Bond is on this call also. So thank you for all you do with the police department. We really appreciate what you and Major Reese and all your people are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. And thank you to both majors for being here tonight. We really appreciate it and all that you're doing for us in our NPU. Okay, we're going to move on. Is there anyone here from the Fulton County Prosecutor's Office? MARTA Police? Bureau of Housing and Code Enforcement Compliance? Public Works? Jump right in if you're here. I can't see all the names. Officer of the Solicitor? Is Andrew here? Watershed Management, Spence Peck. I think I saw you come in.
Good evening, everyone.
Someone, there we go.
See, my phone number is 404-546-1203, and my email address is feel free to send me questions.
Spence, we're having difficulty hearing you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I continue to have this problem with my computer, but it comes and goes. And how about now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, can now.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. So I've got a couple talking points and then a couple of brochures as well that I'll share. Our department has temporarily suspended water disconnections for failure to pay, but that was only temporary through October 31st and is dependent on the mayor extending an order. So please pay attention to that. There's a special election in the city of Atlanta. There's a homestead exemption question on the ballot. Please do a little research on this. As property taxes increase, these can be a barrier to attaining and maintaining low and moderate housing for seniors and income earners all across the spectrum. So these low and moderate income homeowners don't qualify for the community land trust or for the exemption if they purchase through the community land trust. And so the election or the vote on the ballot is regards this question. So have a look at that. Equity is a really important consideration throughout the city. It's fall, so leaves are falling off the trees. Please help us by not blowing or raking any leaves into the drain. These cause all sorts of problems, including they block the inlets, they can block pipes, they eventually degrade and release phosphorus into our watersheds and cause all sorts of impacts on downstream animals and habitat areas. I've got a brochure here if you're looking for ways to get rid of that. There's always compost. And alternatively, here's that brochure now. So it gives you a little bit of information about what happens to them and then gives you some ideas for composting. In the past, we've run composting workshops, but because we are prohibited from doing that right now, those are on hold. And hopefully once we get a handle on coronavirus, we will restart those. It's also a great time to join the Adopt a Drain program. This is where the department gives you some equipment and some safety equipment, and you adopt an inlet, like a gutter inlet near your home, and you help us by keeping leaves from blocking that inlet. I maintain the drain at the bottom of Greenwood where Greenwood Avenue Northeast hits the Beltline. So if you ever see it clogged, please let me know. I try to have eyes on it every day, but I've got a brochure that I'll share with the chair as well about that. Don't forget to update your information with us. If you have concerns about your bill, we're still here to serve. We can help. You can call 311 for any of that or visit atl311.com. There are also some water related updates, but none that are pertinent to NPUF, and same for the Clean Water Atlanta updates. There's several projects that have some updates here in the materials that I'll share with the chair, but none are relevant to NPUF. With that, I will take any questions.
June, did you have a question for Spence Peck?
Yeah. Raise your hand. I do, Debbie.
Yeah, I know you do, but June's hand was up first.
Fine.
Okay, June? June? Okay, you're not on. I'm going to lower your hand. Rich, go ahead.
Yes, Spence, this is Rich Sussman from Linridge Smart Manor Neighborhood Association. We, through the South Fork Conservancy, received the 30% design plans for the sewer treatment facility on the North Fork. And I remember talking to you about this several months ago, and we thought Linridge Smart Manor would get informed when the location was selected. We did not get that information. And we want to be part of that so we can have input into it. It directly affects our Cheshire Farm Trail. One of the diversion pipe runs into the Cheshire Farm Trail from the proposed site of the treatment facility. So we want to make sure that we are fully engaged in it and that all locations are surveyed. You know, several years ago, we got a quote unquote poop tank down on Cheshire Bridge Road. After it was moved from further up along the South Fork. So our neighborhood is being severely impacted by these. So I want to make sure that you keep us informed of what's going on, and we want to become a participant in this process.
Absolutely, I understand your concern, and I apologize for not keeping a closer eye on that. I will make sure to pass. Is the email that you have connected with me on the best way? I can share that with the project.
Yeah. Yes, it would be the best way. And we have a general meeting on November 11th. And I think it would be a good idea for you to attend that virtually and give us an update, at least a timetable of what's happening and how the neighborhood can officially get involved in the process. And we can discuss how to link onto that once you know, we talk on the phone.
Yeah, well, we can talk offline about that meeting. I'm happy to, either myself or the PI, the Public Information Officer for that project.
Yeah, I got it. I got it off the chat. Thank you.
Okay, great. And Jim Hardy, last question for Spence.
Just Spence, any word at all from Watershed on the real problem that we have with stormwater runoff caused by the Edgewood development at Piedmont and Montgomery Ferry?
That is not a project I have had in front of me in a long time, but I will follow up with the folks.
We would appreciate that because it's a continuing problem and no resolution in sight.
I understand. We'll follow up tomorrow morning and let you know when I find out.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, if there are any other questions, you can find Spence's contact information in the chat and contact him directly. And Barbara Doherty from
Hi. Hey everybody. I'm Barbara from 311. Thank you so much for having me tonight, Debbie. I am just really here to share our contact information really quick with you guys. I posted it in the chat and I just want to read through it real quick for those of you who are attending via phone. So obviously 311 is the non-emergency call center for City of Atlanta services. We are open Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Just dial 311 inside city limits. It works like 911, but for non-emergencies. So potholes, leaks in the street, questions about your water bill, if a park needs maintenance, or you just don't know who to contact about something, a street sign needs to be repaired or replaced, all that good stuff. You can also visit our website and report there at atl311.com, or you can email us at atl311@atlantag.gov. Again, that email is atl311@atlantag.gov. And you can also report via our app. Just search ATL311 on the app at Google Play Store. And we're also all over social media. So you can report and ask questions on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, Nextdoor, Snapchat, and YouTube if you don't like having to wait on the phone or talk to people on the phone. So that is pretty much all for me. Does anybody have any questions or concerns or issues or service requests they need me to check up on? Well, if you change your mind, Debbie has my contact information. So I'm sure you can email me if anybody does have things they need me to check up on. But again, I thank you for your time. And Randy, I see your message here. I'll respond to you now.
Great, thank you.
All right, thanks, y'all. Have a good one.
Is there any other representative from the city that would care to speak? Okay, if not, we're going to move to comments.
Oh. Hello?
Hello.
Code enforcement.
Code enforcement, I'm sorry.
And Debbie, we also have Councilman Michael Julian-Bond with us this evening.
And I was just going to transition to that, but let's hear from code enforcement. So if there's a quick update, who is reporting?
Yes, good evening, everyone. This is Officer Wimberly with Code Enforcement, and I just have an update for.
I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
I have an update for 1791 Piedmont Road.
Okay.
That property has been demolished. In 1944 Piedmont Circle, that property is now on a nuisance abatement list. And also, if anyone would like to attend the MREM hearing for this month, I can send you that link to participate in the MREM review board. And that's all I have.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Sorry, Councilmember Bond. Welcome.
No, it's quite all right. Am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
Yes, you are unmuted.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I want to say good evening to everyone. I just wanted to drop by because I hadn't been by virtually the NPUF since COVID began. But I do have some news about the drag racing. Today, after working with Judge Christopher Portis of the Municipal Court last week, we introduced legislation to codify his order. He put out a temporary order on Friday, as was stated by our majors and our council president, that excuse me, that any person arrested for these street racing types of offenses or operating a SUV, I'm sorry, not an SUV, but an off-road vehicle on our streets, that they will first have to be arraigned before they're allowed to do the no cash bond that's at the municipal jail. What that will do is the judge who is sitting can put conditions on that signature bond. For example, if we have a person or persons who are in a particular area of town, drag racing on a particular street, the judge, as a condition of their bond, can order them, not to drive their car during certain hours, for example, or to be in a certain area of town, et cetera, et cetera. So it gives an added tool to the court. And even though the court building itself is closed, Judge Portis assured us at our public safety meeting last Monday that they're still meeting virtually for the cases like these of persons who are arrested at our municipal jail. They do it virtually. So some of the cases are being heard, but the court is not completely open. And so I wanted I know that this has been an issue for neighborhoods in NPUF, and wanted to provide that update. And I put my telephone number and email in the chat, and I'm open for any questions or concerns that anybody might have.
Any questions for Councilmember Bond? I don't see any hands up. So thank you again for being here. I hope you're able to join us for a little bit longer in our meeting, and we hope to see you again soon.
Yes, ma'am. I will certainly hold on for a while.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, before we get to the presentation, we do have one voting matter on our consent agenda. This is the a Board of Zoning Adjustment Application V2136 at 1746 Noble Drive in the Morningside neighborhood. The applicant in Morningside have asked that we deferred this application. This is not something that I think we need to discuss. Is there anyone here that would like to have this application removed from the consent agenda? I don't hear anyone. Does the applicant want to have their application taken off? All right. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. And Jane is seconding. Okay, all those in favor, please click your yes button.
I did it in mine, honey.
Yeah. Rich, you might want to mute. Has everyone voted that cares to vote? Okay, I'm going to close the vote. By a vote of 23-0, the consent agenda is approved. Okay. Moving along, presentations. We have a presentation tonight from Nat Holzel on the Lindbergh Armor Master Plan. Nate, I'm going to turn the screen over to you.
So, hi, Debbie, everyone else at the NPU. Yeah, Debbie, if you can provide or give Kevin Bacon, my colleague, access for the screen sharing. If we have anything to share, Kevin, you can have it. But Kevin Bacon and I, as well as Jason Morgan from the Department of City Planning, are kicking off this Lindbergh Armor Master Plan. And Kevin's going to provide a bit more detail, and Jason and I are here to answer any questions afterwards. Thanks.
Okay, Kevin should be able to share.
I think I've got access to everything that I need. I would only share the project summary that I'll also make sure to post in the chat when I finished. Debbie, thanks for catching those errors in the links. We've got those fixed and those new versions available for posting.
Great.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Kevin Bacon. I'm the director of the Office of Design with our Department of City Planning. We're here to talk about the beginning of our Lindbergh Armor Master Plan, highly anticipated, I understand. We see this as a continuation of the Atlanta City design, particularly obviously very interested in this area for its ability to grow and kind of how that hasn't happened in the past and in ways that we see that it could going forward. And what brings this to our mind, why we're all very interested in this right now, everybody's heard about all of the different transit improvements, the trail improvements in the area, whether it's the Beltline, the Clifton Corridor, a safer Piedmont road for pedestrians, South Fork, Path 400. I mean, the list just goes on. And really, when we looked at this study and started talking about it many years ago, at this point, it was how are these things being coordinated and doing in such a way that really benefits the future development of the area, particularly for the Lindbergh Armor area at the core of this, and doing it so in a way that really considers who's living there and working at the core of the area very first. So this study being done in partnership with MARTA, and we're joined tonight, should be joined tonight by Debbie Frank and Greg Floyd, who are our partners in this. We'll be looking at this over the next several months. We're starting the engagement of this this month in October. We expect that we will be wrapping things up next summer of 2021, where we hope to have a plan for adoption. We'll be looking at things like land use and zoning, the infrastructure projects like we talked about, and expect that there will be concept plans and catalytic projects identified within all of that. The way that we're structuring the engagement for this project, and you'll see this in the project summary when this gets posted, we're trying new things from the way that we've done this in the past. One, we have different groups called implementing partners, and this is our opportunity to bring together those that are directly responsible for the programming and implementation of these projects. So we have a trails group, a transit-oriented development group, a multimodal group, and one that we're kind of leaving open to be identified as we work with the community going forward. At the core of the study, we're having what we call a community voices group that is really focusing on connecting with and bringing in the residents, the workers in the core of this area to help us understand the identity of the area and what needs to happen to make that be successful. The meetings for those will be really aimed at empowering those voices and continuing on beyond the life of the study. And then throughout the course of this, we'll have up to 3 wider public engagement meetings as a part of this, as well as many other stakeholder interviews. We've heard a lot from other neighborhoods and NPUs that they want to get involved. We definitely have you on our list and expect to be hearing from us over the next few weeks if you haven't done so already. For the way that we intend to conduct this, obviously it's a very challenging time doing these planning projects remotely. So most of our engagement for the time being, actually all of our engagement for the time being, will be virtual. We have ideas of how we would like to do this in person, but it will be when conditions are safe to do so. So we have our website, social media. We have other self-serve activities that we have a plan that will be actually introduced on site and areas throughout the community that can be accessed on your own, such as drop boxes, interactive maps, and the interviews themselves. And we'll be coming back to the NPUs and the neighborhoods throughout the process. So this isn't just the one time you'll hear from us. We do want to come back and talk to you. We've actually been to NPUs B and E earlier this month. And I think that's about it from me. I'm happy to answer any questions. Maybe I'll turn it to Jason or Nate or Debbie or Greg from our team, who I know are with us this afternoon, if anybody else wants to add on anything that I might have missed.
Nate, Jason?
I don't have any. Yeah, I don't have any additional comments.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Jason Morgan, and again, just wanted to echo my colleague and indicate that nothing really new to add. Just wanted to say that we're really excited about the opportunity to work with the community. I think there's a lot of potential to do something really unique and interesting, and we're really wanting to work in partnership with you to achieve that.
Okay, Kevin, we exchanged some emails and I was asking who you had engaged as part of your advisory group.
Yes, and I can share that list with you. It's pretty long. The community voices itself was at about 40 different contacts. I know it's even grown over the last week from there. as well as the different implementing partners groups. They have about a dozen or so people included in that. And the thing to point about the Community Voices group too, that's not meant to be an exclusionary group or a one-time selection based group. We are, part of this is difficult in finding out who are the community voices within that. And so we've spent a lot of time over the last couple of months working on our contacts, reaching out to folks, letting them know that this is happening, and trying to make sure that we're bringing the right people to the study. But there may be those that we've missed and we find out along the way, and then we don't want to exclude them from this. So there's room for people to come involved as we identify those. So I can share the larger contact list with you. Happy to do so.
Okay, and how were they selected? Just through your contacts?
No, ma'am, through all of the partners in the studies, and it includes looking at who all of the NPU leadership were, who the neighborhoods are, looking at different businesses in the area, the different apartment communities, the residences, looking at how we engage those and started with those contacts and worked our way in from there.
Okay, because I don't recall that NPUF was engaged at all in any of those conversations. And we represent like the bottom third, I think, of your study area.
Okay, well, you will be engaged going forward.
Great. There are 2 hands up. Jim Hardy.
Just a question for you. Have you looked at the current master plans for the involved neighborhoods? And if not, when are you going to look at them?
Well, we're just getting started, and we have a number of those plans already, but as we engage with the neighborhoods, we would love to make sure that we're getting copies of those plans and incorporating those with our study.
Thank you.
And
Yes,
Jack White?
I'm curious, or Kevin or whoever, can you describe the parameters of the area that you're studying here? I want to make sure that it's what I think it is. And then I may have a follow-up question after I hear that.
Yes. The area that we're looking at, and this will be identified on the project sheet that I'll post here when I wrap up, really looks at the core of the Lindbergh Center area. So the area generally around the MARTA red and gold lines to about 85 as the eastern boundary, dipping down a little bit to Cheshire Bridge, and then including the Armour area.
So if I could, I mean, as you know very well, this is for reasons that have nothing to do with logic or planning, is part of NPUE. I've never understood it, given that under the overwhelming majority of the traffic impacts that occur affect Piedmont Heights and the folks right over there in NPU F. And I would just urge y'all in planning to, even though it's a live wire and every time somebody makes a move to try to change that, there seem to be thousands and hundreds of people that are offended, but it strikes me as no logical reason. There's a limited number of residents. There are some in Armour. Maybe there will be more. I don't know. I guess it depends on your plan. But it really is odd to me how that ought to be cleaned up some way or another. It just doesn't make any sense to me to listen to NPUE with almost no road connections to this debate stuff that deeply impacts the west side of the neighborhoods over there. I don't live there, but if I did, I'd be hugely concerned about that. Good luck to you.
Actually, to correct Jack, the only way in or out of the Armour-Otley area is through NPUF. There are no road connections.
Yes, but that's correct. But it's also correct that Piedmont Road coming from Lindbergh has a huge amount of traffic that leads in.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's not quite that simple.
Yeah.
No, not the whole study area, just the Armour-Otley area.
And while you'll see the area indicated in gold on the project summary, that's obviously an area where we think that a lot of the development recommendations will focus. But to your point, a big driving force behind the study is exactly the comments that you're making. And it's not just the Armour area, it's the relative disconnectedness of Lindbergh Center that we feel has really kept the area from being the vital area of the city that it could be from a community standpoint, from a transportation hub standpoint, and with everything about to happening in terms of the transit and the trail projects, Piedmont Road itself. This could really be a moment where if done correctly, this makes it a really well-connected area of the city, and we want to make sure that happens.
I wish you luck. It is it's neither fish nor fowl. It's really not a daily concern to anybody in NPUE at all. And yet, because it is not the area that we just talked about along Piedmont is not, and the Armour area are not in NPUF, it tends to not be a direct concern here. So good luck. Make it its own NPU. Good luck to you.
Well, a portion of the Armour area is in NPUF. It's separated by the MARTA tracks right now, which I totally agree with what Jack's saying. The current alignment makes absolutely no common sense at all. But of course, common sense isn't that common.
Thank you all. Any other questions for Kevin or Jason or Nate? Okay, well, thank you for the first update. We'll look forward to hearing from you again, hopefully soon. And I am looking forward to seeing that list of community partners.
I'll have that to you tomorrow. Thank you all very much for your time.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Planners report. Doug Young, do you have a report that you'd like to share?
I do indeed, Debbie. Just give me a minute here to bring that up. So a couple items tonight. One is you might know that the NPU University has wrapped up its 2020 course year. We are offering one more course in that regard about Atlanta City Design Housing, which is one of the initiatives related to the implementation of Atlanta City Design. So you can still check that out by going to the npuatlanta.org catalog for NPU University, where you might have gone before to check out those course offerings. You also might have heard about our 5-week book club discussing The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein. That actually is wrapping up this Thursday. It's the last of the sessions, and this Thursday is a panel discussion about discriminatory practices in housing in the city of Atlanta and how the city can work to undo those over the course of time. If you go to atlantacitydesign.com, you'll see a link for registering for that Zoom session. And as you all know, APAB meets virtually and has met October 17th of this month. And so if there's any report from APAB, that is usually given by your NPU, which of course NPUF dutifully does along the way. Then lastly, the City of Atlanta is getting ready to launch the Comprehensive Development Plan with some kickoff sessions this fall. The website will be launched shortly in the next week or two. It'll have information about all the virtual public meetings and ways to get involved in that project. And then I will be adding fact sheets and links to all those activities in the chat, as well as my contact information.
Hey, it's CD.
And that is my update. Thank you. Is there any questions about city planning operations or anything about NPUs in city planning?
There is one more NPU University course that is listed on the consent agenda.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
How does the NPU system work? Which is tomorrow between 6 and 8 p.m. and the link is on the consent agenda for those that are interested.
Thank you for seeing that, Debbie. And like I mentioned, I'll add several links to the chat, as well as a fact sheet that you all can peruse at your leisure.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Do we have any neighborhood reports? Lindridge Martin Manor?
This general meeting, November 11th, 7 o'clock. Obviously, it'll be a virtual meeting. We'll get information out.
Okay. Morningside? Do you have a report?
No, we don't have a report this month.
A report, thank you. Piedmont Heights?
Annual meeting is November 8th from 3:30 to 6. It will be a virtual meeting. We'll get invitations out.
Okay. Virginia Highland?
I don't have any report.
Okay. Edmund Park? Edmund Park, okay. Emory in the Druid Hills area, CDC area?
Nothing to report from Druid Hills.
Okay. Parks, Trees, and Environment Committee?
Nothing to report.
Okay. I have just a brief announcement from the Education Committee, for which we have no chair, but the Grady Naming Committee is having a meeting tomorrow evening at 5 o'clock. You can watch that on Facebook, and if you want to speak, you can sign up between 4 and 4:50 prior to the meeting. To get that link, you'll need to go to the Atlanta Board of Education website. So last month we had a presentation on the Grady Naming Committee, and this is their next update. And the last thing I wanted to talk about before we get to matters for voting is the chair report. I just have a couple things that I need to report. One is that the NPU F Executive Committee met via Zoom on Monday, September 28th. We reviewed proposed changes to the bylaws and the policy sheet, and specifically to modify both to include virtual meetings. Later in the meeting today, we'll share with you our recommendations. Then the Zoning Committee met on October 14th. The only item on the agenda was Z2059, which is a rezoning application at 910 Lindbergh Drive. We also invited residents from Lindridge Martin Manor neighborhood to participate in the meeting and ask questions about this application. And that application is also at the end of tonight's agenda. And then finally, Doug had mentioned the APAB report. I do have a report. We did meet last Saturday, several agenda items of note. One is that the Elected Officials Compensation Committee has announced that they will have a public hearing on the recommendations for compensation salaries for the mayor, council member, and school board salaries. The date and time and link to the meeting will be announced, so watch for that if you're interested. APAB does have a representative on this committee. Christy Peters from NPUT was appointed a representative to the Atlanta Citizen Review Board for NPUs S through Z. Her appointment subject to a background check and city council confirmation. We had a lively discussion over APAB's bylaws that were changes that were proposed by the bylaw committee. Similar issues to include virtual and hybrid meetings and to expand APAB membership from 50 delegates and alternates to up to 75. So that's expanding the size of APAB membership. And the nominating committee proposed revised procedures for virtual elections. There are still some volunteer opportunities to represent APAB and the NPUs on several Atlanta boards, including the Invest Atlanta Board and the Beltline TADAC and the Code Enforcement Commission. And information about those appointments are on the consent agenda. And that's it from APAB. Are there any other reports before we move to matters for voting? Okay, first item under matters for voting is the Board of Zoning Adjustment Application V20-101. The referral certificate's been amended. This is 1105 Amsterdam Avenue. The applicant seeks a variance from the zoning regulations to reduce the required front yard setback from 35 feet to 20 feet 7 inches and to reduce the required half-depth front yard from 17.5 feet to 7 feet in order to construct a new single-family residence. The applicant is Nina Gentry.
Hi, Debbie.
Hey. And
I've never done the screen share. So do I just click on it since I've got the screen up in my computer?
yeah, where it says screen share.
Oh, yeah, well.
It's at the bottom
There
of
it is.
my screen.
There it is. Okay. I've learned something this evening, guys. Good evening. I'm here representing the homeowners, the Stanovskys, and they are on the call. We're requesting a variance to reduce the front yard setback to, I'll blow this up a bit, to approximately where the current house sits today. It does encroach into the front yard setback, and it also encroaches into the east side yard setback and the half depth front yard setback. It's about 1 foot from the east setback and 4 feet from the half depth, from the property line on the half depth front yard setback. So we're requesting to reduce the front yard, as Debbie mentioned, to 20 feet 7 inches, which is approximately where the existing house sits today. We are we're not requesting a reduction in the east side yard setback. We're actually planning for that and proposing that to be the required 7 feet. We are asking for a reduction from 17.5 to 7 feet on the half depth front yard. This is a non-conforming lot. It has 50 feet of frontage and less than 9,000 square feet of land area. We agreed to a deferral from the first meeting with Virginia Highland to make some revisions to the plan. As you see, the application or the proposal has a detached garage, although it is connected with a walkover bridge, if that's the best way to describe it. So you can actually enter the office that will be above from the second story of the proposed home. The changes were to relocate the garage doors from the rear of the property to the side off of Rosewood. So we were able to decrease the amount of impervious surface and save some trees. We notified all the surrounding neighbors of the application. My clients, the Stanovskys, have told me they have had many neighbors reach out to them on the revisions, and we're very happy with them. It was presented to the Virginia Highland Zoning Committee as well as the board, and it was voted for them to recommend approval of the revised site plan. And I will let Jack or anyone else from Virginia Highland to make their comments, or if my clients, the Stanovskys, would like to say anything. I know you have got a long agenda.
Jack, do you want to give the neighborhood report, Virginia Highland report?
This was an interesting and difficult application. We appreciate the Stanovskys making revisions after listening to neighbors and some thoughts that they had. There were concerns about, on the original plan, about passage of light and air and stormwater runoff from loss of trees. So there's been some modifications made that most of the neighbors found to be pleasing and that we accepted. And the number of curb cuts have been reduced. And as Nana pointed out, the overall impervious surface has been reduced to 44%, which it was higher before. So we appreciate those changes. I want to note for the record that the applicant is also considering, he or she can speak to it if they like, the removal of a tree in the front yard that we have hired an independent arborist who does not think it needs to come down. So that may be contested, but that has nothing to do with this zone, the matter before the BZA. So that said, after the revisions, and we made the planning committee and the board both voted unanimously to recommend support of this variance in its revised form, which is dated the 25th. Is that correct, Nana? Revised version of it.
Oops. trying to get to the stamp.
Sure, yeah, that's what we.
9/24.
Yeah.
Stamp received 9/24.
Stamped as revised and stamped at 9/24. And that is my motion.
Your motion is to recommend approval. Is that conditioned on the revised site plan dated 9/24? Jack, is there a condition or?
They, based on the site plan dated 9/24.
Okay. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Kay. Are there any questions for the applicant, or does the homeowner want to say anything?
We've got nothing to say. Just appreciate everyone's attention to the process. Thank you.
Thank you for working with the neighborhood. Okay, seeing none, you can unshare your screen. We will take a vote.
Thank you.
Debbie,
Yes.
could you confirm the condition? Was it site plan dated September 24th or September 20th?
I
believe Nana said the 24th. Did she not?
That's what, yeah, 24th.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's undo the screen share.
I thought I did. Maybe I didn't.
No, it's not.
Should be at the top of your screen, Nina.
Okay, where do I hit? The new share or resume?
Debbie, you can stop the screen share too on the top of your screen.
Sorry, guys. I'm technically challenged here. There's a new screen. There you go.
There we go. Yay.
Thank you,
Okay.
Debbie.
Okay, so the motion is to recommend approval of this application based on the site plan dated 9/24/2020. If you are in favor of the motion, please click the yes, the green yes check. If you are opposed, click the red X for no. Only NPU residents may vote. Oops, number's still going up. It's going down. It's going up. Okay, I'm going to close the vote. By a vote of 29-0, the motion carries.
Thank you all very much. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you. The next application is V20-121, 1715 Merton. This is in the Morningside neighborhood. Applicant seeks a variance from the zoning regulation to reduce the required rear yard setback from 20 feet to 2.5 feet in order to construct an addition to an existing accessory building or a garage, which is a garage. Diane Barfield, this is your application.
Good evening, I'm Diane Barfield. I represent the property owners at this address of 1715. It's a very simple request. The existing garage is a non-conforming structure. It's already 2.5 feet from the rear property line, and it's kind of built into a bank. They just want to expand to the left, and the location to line up with the existing garage saves a major tree that's in the backyard, and the existing driveway already provides access for this proposed addition. So we went through the zoning committee with Lennox Park Morningside, and through their board meeting and got approval, and that's we have support from our neighbors on this request.
Okay, Rebecca, did you want to give a Morningside report?
Yes, Morningside voted to approve 13-0. And I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Okay.
And Jack, that was the second. Okay.
Yes, it was.
Are there any, thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Matt Sussman, I see your hand raised. Do you have a question?
I do. How large is the expansion? You said that the existing garage is 2.5 feet from the property line, and the expansion is to the left. How far are they expanding the garage?
I'm looking for my justification that tells me that. I apologize. It's enough to get one additional car in. It does not exceed the requirements for the 30% size of the garage in relationship to the principal structure.
Okay.
And I apologize. I don't have that figure. For some reason, I think it's something like 340 square feet.
But it's essentially allowing for an additional vehicle.
It is, and it's going to
Okay.
line up with the driveway that services the property now that goes into the existing garage. It widens out past the existing garage, and so they're going to make the addition to actually line up with that pavement, so they'll have access to the addition through the existing driveway and will not have to add any more hard surface or any more pavement to the property other than the footprint of this garage addition.
And so one last question is, what is the overall, what's the current impervious surface count, and what's the proposed impervious surface count?
Okay, let me see. We're proposing to be at 36.7%. I'm sorry, I can't tell you exactly right now what the existing is. The maximum allowable is 40%, and we're going to be at 36.7 with this.
Okay, that was my next question. Is how's it compared to what's allowable? So,
right. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Other than the setback, this proposal is compliant with all the other zoning criteria as far as lot coverage, size of accessory building in relationship to the principal structure, height, whatever.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, the motion is to recommend approval of B2121 at 1715 Merton. If you're in favor of that motion, please click on your green yes icon. If you're opposed, please click on the red X. Has everyone voted that cares to vote? Okay, the voting is closed by a vote of 27 in favor and 1 opposed. The motion carries. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you. Next application is V2122. This is 1435 North Highland in the Morningside neighborhood. The applicant seeks a special exception from the zoning regulations to allow for an expansion, in parentheses, construction of a rear 2-story deck addition, unparenthesis, to an existing legal non-conforming duplex. Is the applicant present? The applicant is Carter Johnson.
You're on mute, buddy.
He's there, but he's muted.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Sorry, I was having a tough time getting off mute there. Hi, I'm Woody Johnson. My wife, Vicki, and I live in the duplex. We've been here about 6 years, and we were doing an interior remodel. And as part of that, we have a patio on the downstairs level, which you have to traverse a set of steps to go down to it. We wanted to have same level outside seating with a deck on the back, and that's what our request was. We're a conforming, non-conforming duplex And so in order to add the deck, we needed to get a special exception for that. And that's the request we're making tonight.
Okay. Rebecca?
And Morningside voted 13-0 to approve. And I'd like to make that motion.
Okay, the motion is to recommend approval of V2122. Is there a second?
Second. I second.
Oh, great. Thanks, Jack. Any questions for the applicant? I don't see any hands raised. So I will, first I will clear all votes. All those in favor of the motion to recommend approval of V2122 at 1435 North Highland, please click on your yes icon. If you're opposed, click on the red X or no icon. Has everyone voted that cares to vote? It looks like it. I will close the voting by a vote of 20, is it 28 or 29? They're very tiny. 28 to nothing. The motion carries.
I actually, oh, now it's 28. It was 29. It kept moving.
Oh, yeah, and it was a moving target. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for all your help.
We'll record that at 29-0. Okay, next application, which is actually the last BZA application. This is a V2132 at 1800 Piedmont. The applicant seeks a special exception from the zoning regulation to reduce the required number of off-street parking spaces from 98 spaces to 47 spaces for a proposed private high school. This is in the Piedmont Heights neighborhood. Is the applicant present?
I am, Madam Chairman.
Great, thanks.
It's Matt Skinner.
You want to tell us about your application?
Yeah, we code requires we're moving or starting a high school and are under contract to purchase the former Rock Springs Presbyterian Church, maintaining all of the historical nature of it and doing only minor renovations interior. And part of the code for parking requires 98 parking spaces based on 4 per classroom, and then 1 for every 35 square feet in the largest meeting area. So that comes out to 98. There are 47 spaces there. However, our presentation is that we leased the Morningside Baptist Church facility right across the street and have access to 195 spaces in that area. And unlike most businesses, we can actually control who parks within our parking lot through student parking or staff parking.
Excuse me, Matt, can you kind of orient us? We're talking about a new school at Rock Springs Presbyterian Church, which is an expansion of the Heritage School, which is right across the street.
That is correct. I'm sorry. I probably should have explained that a little bit better.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you care to add?
No, just that we do part of that calculation, I think, assumes a simultaneous use of the largest meeting room and the classrooms. And that would never be the case for us. We would either have everybody in class or we would be having a meeting within the largest classroom, but neither both. But we would never have both, I should say.
Okay. And Piedmont Heights, Tim or Jim, do you have a report?
The board, Piedmont Heights board met on the 8th of October and voted unanimously to recommend approval. I'll make that my motion.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
That's Jack, okay.
Yeah.
Are there any questions for the applicant? Matt Sussman, your hand is up. Go ahead, Matt.
Sorry, I was muted and I always have issues. So this is an expansion of the existing school, the Heritage School there?
That is correct.
That's correct.
Yes.
And they currently share space with the church there, correct?
At Morningside Baptist Church, that is correct. Yes.
Yeah. And how many spaces are available just in that lot entirely?
195.
And how many spaces does the school use during school days and school time?
Probably less than 30.
Okay. So what I'm trying to understand is how many spaces will you be needing at that at the Morningside Baptist Church, and is there any competing? Doesn't sound like there's competition for spaces at the church during school hours.
No, we do share the Ansley Golf Club does have a satellite parking arrangement there, but they're limited to about I think 35 spaces. But we never are in need of spaces. We have plenty of open spaces on a daily basis.
My one last concern about parking there is it is also the site of a polling station, and
yes.
On election day, I have not had an issue parking there during election day. But this would seem to decrease available spaces during election day. So I didn't know if the applicant has considered or what they do currently for that to ensure that there are spaces for people who want to vote on voting day, and what they might consider in the future for that.
Yeah, we do not have school on election day.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. The motion, a motion was made to recommend approval of V20-132 at 1800 Piedmont Drive. Oops, let me clear the current votes. All those in favor of the motion, please click the green yes button. If you're opposed to that motion, please click the red X. Oops. Okay, has everyone voted that cares to vote? The voting is closed by a vote of 27-0. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay. That takes us to the rezoning application, which is Z2059. This is an application to rezone 2.007 acre property from the R4 single family residential. Minimum lot size is 0.21 acres. Zoning designation to the R4A single family residential. Minimum lot size 0.17 acres. Zoning designation. And the way that we generally handle rezoning applications is that we give the applicant 10 minutes to describe their project. We ask the neighborhood for their report, then give the applicant 5 minutes to rebut the neighborhood's report if necessary. We'll then ask for a motion. And at that point, I will open up the discussion for questions from the members once we have a motion on the floor. Brian Warnock is the applicant. Do you have anything that you want to share on the screen? You can go ahead and do that.
Sure, I'll share the site plan here. Okay, yeah, so we had a pretty lengthy discussion last week about with the neighborhood and on the NPU F zoning committee meeting last week, going through a lot of the details of it. So I'll kind of just go highlights here, but try to give as much as possible. Basically, there's 3 parcels here. It's currently configured as 3 parcels. There's one parcel with a house on it at 928 Lindbergh on the eastern side. There is, I'll switch over to the survey here. There is a parcel here, 922 Lindbergh, which also includes, another older historical lot within it to the rear and the western side. So it has 2 lots inside it. It's currently configured as one here. And then there's the larger parcel off to the west, which has a much different title and use history than a lot of some others in the neighborhood, or all the others in the neighborhood. This parcel here to the west, actually back in the 30s, was part of a V.H. Kreischer and Sons neighborhood subdivision, and was part of the Mooney's Lake amusement park properties. At that time, it was owned by the Mooney family, and up until about the 60s, and then was consolidated with the Broadview Plaza for the Broadview Plaza development. All the things that they were doing all the way over to Piedmont Road, and a lot of what got left over on the eastern side was taken with all the right-of-way projects from 400. There's a 45, 400, all those expansions, 85. And this is kind of what's left over, which would be lot 20 and part of lot 19 of that old subdivision, VH Kreischer. And this one here is lot 1 and lot 2 of what would be the Lindridge subdivision. One of the things about doing the rezoning, these all 3 parcels here have had significant right-of-way take, much different from most of the lots in the neighborhood. You can kind of see on the dotted line here at the bottom how much right-of-way. It was pretty much this entire westbound lane used to be the front yard here of these parcels. So that's quite unique to these parcels as well. It's also on the transitional edge of the neighborhood, and up into the very dense, high density uses to the west. So we're seeking to basically take what is currently configured as 3 lots and subdivide them into, trying to get the 6 lots here. And one of the things that's kind of a burden is that obviously the right-of-way take is making the parcels a little smaller, as well as the the frontages would be, with the current zoning, would be more than what would be required in the existing zoning for the neighborhood itself. So kind of transitionally, we would be requiring larger sizes as we transition open to the interstate and across, with much smaller properties across the interstate. Obviously, there's some attached, and then there's some single family that are quite small lots over there. To the east side of the neighborhood, there are 4 lots that are already zoned RLC. I think right now 2 of them are used as a school, and 2 of them are used for kind of some more commercially type purposes. That RLC carries with it, for that transitional use on the other side of this Lindridge subdivision, a minimum lot size of only 5,000 square feet. So we're requesting the R4A would be 7,500 square feet. There's some kind of limitations for the site here as well, with this being a GDOT route. Trying to consolidate the curb cuts here is kind of what we're trying to do here with this size lot, and utilize the curb cut that's been recently installed here on Lindbergh Drive to access all 4 of these new lots fronting Lindbergh. And then I mentioned that historical lot in the back, where with the transitional zoning, that lot will now be able to be reconfigured with access onto Lindridge Drive over there. So That's pretty much most. They'll kind of go a little bit through the lot sizes. Probably the smallest lot is here with the large and going kind of bigger and bigger and all the way to the west. You know, it kind of getting much larger and larger as we go west here. So it's set up in more of a transitional area there. Lot 1 has 7,661 square feet. Lot 2 is 7,622, and lot 3 is 15,902, and lot 4 is 15,300. Lot 5 is 33,370, and lot 6 is 7505. One of the things with this, subdivision here, we're trying to get access to the creek for these lots, a lot like a lot of the other lots within the neighborhood, especially on Lynn Ridge. A lot of them back up to the creek. So we thought that was unique and wanted to, continue to keep that in a more uniform fashion with the access to the creek on those particular lots. So I thought that was good in this particular type of site plan here. The other thing we're trying to do is preserve the house that was there at the beginning of the neighborhood, thereabouts, and trying to keep it. There was the historic destination granted for the neighborhood 5 years ago. This particular lot and the 2 parcels, lot 1 and 2, which were included in that historic district, they were designated as non-contributing historical houses. So they could have just as easily been excluded from the entire historic district by design, as such was the first 3 lots on the eastern side of the neighborhood that were excluded. Currently, the school occupies one of the historical houses in the neighborhood and one that was out of the neighborhood historic district. So that's kind of unusual that the way it's currently been changed to current uses, that it straddles that. Also across the street, we mentioned the sizes of these lots. With this right-of-way take on this side, there was also some significant right-of-way take on the other side. I've showed a lot of those things on the zoning committee meeting last week, but basically there's significant right-of-way take on the lot across the street, 911 across the street. I think that's the one. So that one, is about 7,500 square foot already across the street. There's also 3 duplexes here, one directly across the street, one that's about right here, one that's on the corner of Armin and Lindbergh, and another one just next to that. So there's 2 duplexes and another duplex here, which kind of lends also to the slightly more dense uses coming down the street. Another thing that we had looked at was just sort of the lot inventory in the neighborhood. There's been some, changes for a variety of reasons. In I think the last 2 years, the last 3 years since the inception of this historic district, there were, 2 historical houses that were contributing at the beginning of the historic district that were torn down, somehow determined to not be contributing anymore within 3 years of the inception of the historic district, and then torn down with the blessing of the Historical Society Review Society, and with the blessing of the apparently of City Atlanta, actually using a lot of funding from park funds and stuff to take down some of these historic properties in the neighborhood. So that's I was kind of starting to look into that, but basically there's been, Jim mentioned the 4 lots on, so that's kind of the historic district thing that got set up, that's very recently set up 5 years ago. And then there's the subdivision itself, which, from the 50s, I mentioned the 4 lots that used to be used as residential purposes on Lindbergh. Those have been taken offline. There were, I think, 3 kind of right here, wherever Armin is. There's about 3 lots that right here that are no longer used for residential purposes, and now there's 2 more at the end of Armin. So right off the bat, I mean, you could basically in the last 2 years or last 3 years, there's been two houses taken offline. And then, so we're trying to basically add back some inventory.
1 minute, Brian.
Residential neighborhood. And one of the keys to this particular type of setup is that I was really trying to stick with the single family nature of this design, and trying to keep trying to keep it single family. I've talked to a lot of people that were much more interested in other uses, more dense uses, perhaps some missing middle uses, which would be a little more rental related. A lot of people were discussing townhomes, which could be implemented as part of an RLC transitional zoning use as well. So that's something we kind of looked at, and I live nearby and wanted to keep this as kind of a residential area.
Okay,
so that's kind of what I'm going for.
Please.
Sure. So anyway, I think that's most of the items I had on the list. I would like to show just one thing. I can't see it, but briefly, this is just the from the site here. There's about 1,000 feet over to the RLC and about 1,000 feet over to the 20-foot attached. So
okay.
With that, I'll leave it and allow the neighborhood to discuss.
Okay. Lindridge Martin Manor. Do you have a report?
Hey Debbie, this is Matt Sussman again. I'm going to be presenting a report for Lindridge Martin Manor. So first off, the Lindridge Martin Manor Neighborhood Association Board voted 11-0 not to support Z-20-059, the application to rezone the properties at 910, 922, and 928 Lindbergh from R4 to R4A. Excuse me. So the first thing we're going to talk about is support for development under R4. These properties are currently zoned R4, and we would welcome development under R4 zoning standards, which would be in compliance with the city's current comprehensive development plan. In his rezoning application, the applicant requests to change the properties, as he said, from R4 to R4A. The relevant differences between the two zoning classifications in this case are minimum road frontage and lot area. R4 minimum road frontage is 70 feet. R4 minimum lot area is 9,000 square feet. In R4A, the road frontage is 50 feet and the minimum lot area is 7,500 square feet. Now, I know he said that many of those lots are over that size, but those are the relevant things, relevant information. We wonder if the applicant has considered developing these properties under the R4 zoning category. The applicant claims that the properties developed under R4A zoning would provide transitional zoning between the R4 zoning of the Lindridge Martin Manor neighborhood and the multifamily townhomes and apartments zoned under the special SPI 15 SA8. These properties on Lindbergh Drive are strongly separated from the neighborhood by I-85, State Road 400, and the North Fork of Peachtree Creek. These man-made and natural barriers negate the applicant's arguments for transitional zoning. No transition is needed. There's a huge natural and man-made barrier there. The applicant claims the transitional zoning at the eastern end of Lindbergh Drive, 1036, 1042, and 1054 Lindbergh, zoned RLC, so precedent for transitional zoning in the LMM neighborhood. These properties have been zoned as such for around 40 years, and they lie between the neighborhood and the commercial area at the corner of Cheshire Bridge and Lindbergh Drive. This is 2350 Cheshire Bridge Road. It is zoned MRC-2-C, and this is basically where the CVS is on the corner. The lot size and frontages of the RLC lots did not and have not changed with their use and difference in zoning category. And then the other thing about that, so the lots frontages on those is 70 feet, 65 feet, and 134 feet. Current use of two of these properties, 1036 and 1042, is as a school. And that use is permitted within the R4 zoning according to section 16-06.005 special permits within R4. The applicant claims that the properties at 911, 931, and 937 Lindbergh Drive constitute non-conforming use in the R4 zoning of the LMM neighborhood. These properties contain duplexes, and their use was grandfathered in when the city adopted its zoning ordinance in 1972. Duplexes would not be permitted today, and we would not support their duplex being done there. The lot frontages for these lots are 75 feet, 61.3 feet, and 60 feet. The lot sizes and frontages of these lots did not and have not changed with their use. Now, speaking about the Lindridge Martin Manor National Register Historic District. In 2015, following the recommendation of the Georgia State Historic Preservation Officer, the National Park Service placed the Lindridge Martin Manor neighborhood on the National Register of Historic Places as an historic district. Two of the properties listed on the rezoning application are in 922 and 928 are included in the historic district. The street layout and the lot lines comprise elements of significance for listing of the Lindridge Martin Manor neighborhood in the National Register. Per this section 15-08.005D6, the city's land subdivision ordinance reads, in all historic neighborhoods in which lot layout patterns and design are part of and directly related to identified elements of that neighborhood's historic character, all new lots shall conform to existing lot layout, patterns, and design, including without limitation, orientation of lots to public street and street design patterns. So the applicant also wishes to subdivide the property of 922 and 928 into 3 lots. Subdividing these properties would violate the city's land subdivision ordinance. The property at 910 Lindbergh Drive is not in the National Register Historic District and is not subject to the above section of the city's subdivision ordinance. So that's all I've got to say, and that's it.
Okay. Brian, do you want to respond?
Yeah, I'll just kind of mention, you mentioned the CDP. That's another reason why I was trying to keep the transitional zoning within the CDP with this application. The CDP did not need to be changed, and it's a conforming use with the CDP with the R4. You mentioned, so I'm kind of going through all these things that you threw out there, but right. I mean, it's just it's just transitional use. We're trying to keep the same similar, single family detached structures within the neighborhood. We're trying to work around the existing house and trying to keep that, although it appears that that's not necessary under the historic district rules when they're non-conforming. There's no restrictions on that. And I mentioned that, several lots have already been, changed, and we're blessed with the city of Atlanta to change, and tear down certain historic houses in the neighborhood. And so we're trying to keep this one in here, even though it's non-contributing. So that's kind of a thing. The other thing I want to mention is the stream buffer area in the back over here. We're trying to keep, a good portion of it, non-buildable, and those would be sort of the backyards of these lots as well. And that would, contribute to the green space that we're trying to keep with these houses as well. I would mention, with talking to the neighborhood, I have been trying to, get in touch with them for the better part of most of the year. Started this proposal in April with this CRC committee, April 24th, and then proceeded. There was another lot that became available, and I was trying to work with that and check with it, and I kind of delayed a little bit. And as soon as I found out what we were going to be, working with here, wanted to try to get in touch with the neighborhood. Tried to get in touch with them in June. They sent me to the NPU F zoning committee and told me they weren't going to meet with me. Tried to reach out again for another month. They told me that they hadn't heard anything. Reached out with them again to see if they had any comments. That was in August or July, and they said that they voted to deny it and didn't give me the opportunity to answer any questions. That got us to the zoning committee meeting last week, where residents were finally allowed to join in and have a voice, so I could connect with them. The other thing is, along with that, I alerted all the property owners around me. I haven't had anyone support or deny, I don't think. So I've been trying to get in touch with my neighbors with all of that. So hopefully, there'll probably be some neighbors, that would like to discuss on that. But I've been trying to get in touch with the neighbors to discuss the project, long before it became part of this public process. So I feel like I, went above and beyond this year to try to engage with the neighbor before, getting to this, the more expensive steps of the platting at this level. So hopefully this will be, approved and go forward, and hopefully we'll be able to, contribute and finally develop this area of the neighborhood, and it'll be a benefit and for the neighborhood, and it'll look really good kind of coming in, because right now it's just a kind of a forestry area, and just looks like a big guardrail, and you can't see much what's going on there. So I hope it'll be a good area to beautify it coming into the area, make it feel more like a neighborhood feel after you get over the bridge here. So I guess with that, I'll yield any additional time that I have. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion from Lindridge Martin Manor?
Yeah, Debbie, this is Rich. I make a motion to deny the rezoning application Z 2059.
Okay, is there a second?
The motion.
I'm sorry, and who is seconding?
Susan Calderon.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, the motion is to recommend denial of Z 2059. Are there any questions from the floor? Please raise your hand. Tim, I see your hand up.
Yeah, Debbie, I'm curious what Doug Young's perspective is on regarding the historical designation.
Oh, who cares? I hope my speaker ain't on.
It is on. Please mute.
Oh, I gotta mute it.
And we all love and respect Doug, so we don't want to hurt his feelings.
Debbie, you ready for me to respond?
Yes, please.
Thank you. My name is Doug Young. Of course, I'm with the City of Atlanta's Department of City Planning, and my day job for the City of Atlanta is to run the city's historic preservation review program. And just to bring a little bit of clarity to the situation, the property is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. It's not a local historic district, so the demolition or construction of new buildings or houses in that area would not be subject to any special review beyond the building and zoning code process. But as both, a couple folks pointed out, I guess there is a requirement in the City of Atlanta subdivision code that in districts, in neighborhoods that are listed on the National Register, where platting pattern is significant, the proposed platting pattern does need to conform to that to be considered as meeting the subdivision ordinance here in the City of Atlanta. So that would be one of the considerations that we will be asked to opine about when the formal subdivision application is submitted to the City of Atlanta. I would note that in May of this year, we provided a preliminary comment to Mr. Warnock, and we had concerns about the proposed subdivision not meeting that criteria, and that was sent in at the end of May of this year to him and our subdivision review staff manager. I'm happy to answer any questions about historic status or historic districts or how that all relates to this or doesn't relate to it.
Okay, thanks, Doug. Matt Sussman, your hand is up.
Yes, in response to the applicant's statement about a couple houses on Armand being torn down that were contributing factors to the neighborhood. Those two houses were removed under the Federal Emergency Management Association's. I'm not sure exactly what the program is, but the houses were flooded frequently and they were removed because they posed a danger, and they ended up being flooded frequently. Those houses were also removed prior to the neighborhood's designation. I believe one of the houses were removed in 2011, and the other house was removed in 2014, and the neighborhood received its designation in 2015.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. Are there any other questions for the applicant, for the neighborhood, or for Doug Young regarding the historic districts? Okay, seeing none, there is a motion on the floor to recommend denial. Kay, do you want to describe how we're going to vote for this?
Yeah, we'll vote just the way we have for the last few votes. We'll use the yes button if you support denial and the no button if you do not support denial. We have, I believe, 9 people who are potentially voting members who are not verified. Please go ahead and vote. I will make a note of your names, and you will have until end of business tomorrow to get me your proof of residency, and then we will turn those provisional votes into regular verified votes. Although, we'll see how the vote comes out. It may not affect the impact one way or the other. So let's see how that goes.
Okay. So all those in favor of the motion to recommend denial, please click on the yes button. If you're opposed to the motion of denial, please click on the no icon, which is the red X. And I'm temporarily going to lock the meeting so that nobody else can join. That will mess up the vote counts.
I do have one question. There's a person that's only registered as the letter R. If you could tell us who you are. Or you can contact me tomorrow via the information that's in the chat.
Okay, has everyone voted that cares to vote? The voting is now closed. Kay, I'm going to let you do the count, and I am also going to take some screenshots so that
we have a total of 29 supporting the in favor of the motion to deny, 7 in favor of the motion or opposed to the motion to deny. Of the 29, 1 is a provisional. Of the 7, 2 are provisionals. So in fact, even if all of those were verified, it will not change the outcome. The motion carries.
By a vote of 29-7, the motion carries. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
With 3 of those being provisional.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. And that recommendation will be sent to the city. We're going to move on, a text amendment, Z2069. This is an ordinance by Councilmember Howard Shook, Joyce Shepard, Councilmember Mezakite, and Michael Julian Bond and Dustin Hills to amend the zoning ordinances by adding a definition of short-term rental and to prohibit short-term rentals as a use in R1 through R5 zoning categories, as well as PDH. That's the short version of it. Tonight, we'll use the next 10 minutes to, for review and comments. Next month, this will be on our agenda for a vote of the NPU. So let me open the floor to comments. And if you have a comment, please raise your hand so that you can be recognized. I'm also going to unlock the room. Kathy McClure.
Good evening. My name is Kathy McClure. I'm actually a resident of NPU E in Sherwood Forest, but my husband and I have owned a rental property in Piedmont Heights since 2004. It's a duplex. We are active members of the Piedmont Heights Civic Association. We're actively involved in the battle with Hedgewood over the water coming down our street. And 4 years ago, we converted one side of our duplex to a short-term rental. And then we followed up in January of 2019 with the second side. It's a lovely property, and our rules are that we don't allow any sort of disruptive behavior from our guests. In fact, you can do less as a short-term renter in our house than you could as a long-term renter in our house before, because we strictly control any sort of outdoor disruption that could occur. We do not allow any kind of parties and the like. And since the ordinance has not been formally introduced, I guess I should address that very quickly. The ordinance as proposed is an outright ban on all short-term rentals in all residential neighborhoods in Atlanta. So if we would contend we're grandfathered in under this ordinance, but putting that aside, if this ordinance passes, the usage of our home as we are using it would be prohibited. And the stated purpose for this is there is a paper that the Department of City Planning has put out describing the purpose, the stated objective of this ordinance is to put an end to large disruptive parties in rentals. And I will wholeheartedly agree that party houses, and Mr. Shook, Councilmember Shook, unfortunately lives next door to a very bad one in his neighborhood in Buckhead, where it's basically an event space. And so these types of situations are really, in fact, not really, quote, Airbnbs. These are houses that are rented out by the owners to people who want to throw a big expensive party and charge people for admission. And I agree completely that these should not be allowed. I agree that all short-term rentals should not be permitted to engage in any sort of disruptive behavior. And I think it's appropriate, if this is the objective, it's appropriate to put forth an ordinance that actually accomplishes that without putting the people who are mindful of their neighbors out of prohibiting them from using their property in the manner that we have as such. I think that what is happening here, in fact, this ordinance will do nothing to get rid of these houses that are the problem, because these event spaces they're rogue operations in large part. That's setting aside some short-term rentals that might have a party get out of hand. I don't deny that those do exist, and I don't deny that they should be regulated, prohibited, and punished if they're misbehaving. So that is what I have to say. I'm concerned that this is an outright ban, that it's going to be take some other shape that the NPU will have no comment on. There are all manner of discussions out there about other ways that they can curb short-term rentals, and I think it's inappropriate for the ordinance to go forward if it's modified in a way that drastically changes the shape of the ordinance and the method of regulating rentals such as this. I'm happy to answer any questions or address any concerns.
Thank you, Kathy. Richard or Dorothy Sussman, your hand is up.
It's Richard. Yeah, Kathy, I have to agree with you. When I saw this legislation initially, and I've stayed in Airbnbs in Europe and the United States, and we don't party crazy anyway, but I've seen the results of well-run Airbnbs or well-run short rentals. And I do also understand the dilemma that the city has with a few outlaws. Unfortunately, the council member up in Buckhead has to live next to one. But I think this may be a beginning. I'm not sure what the city's homework has been in looking at successful or unsuccessful regulation of short-term rentals around the country. I know Savannah had a lot of problems at first, and I think Savannah has done a fairly good job in controlling the types of issues that you brought up, and also providing an economic, or at least providing places to stay for people who use these places responsibly. So as it is right now, I think it's just much too broad, that the city has to do a lot more homework. Maybe it has done homework. I really don't know. And really investigate what has been successful, what has not been successful, how to narrow the scope of this so it really addresses the problems that we've seen in Atlanta. And I know Sandy Springs has the problem. Some of the other metropolitan cities in the Atlanta area have faced the same problems too.
Debbie, if it's okay, I did want to thank you for that, Richard. I did want to say one more thing about our particular use, especially during COVID, if that would be permitted. When the pandemic hit, one thing that's happened in our rental is that 99.9% of our renters are families visiting their relatives in Atlanta. They stay for longer periods of time. Morningside, if any are, I guess nobody is in, are there any Morningside people here? Because all your relatives are staying in my rental. We are performing a service for fellow citizens here. We have elderly people staying here who don't want to go stay in a hotel. They're here to visit their children. They don't want to stay with their children, on and on. And also people who are just renovating their homes, or they're in between homes. There's a lot of really great use out there, and I think the city would be making a huge mistake to get rid of this asset. Our property is an asset, and we perform a service.
Great, thank you. Jim Hardy?
I sent in, comments from Piedmont Heights, and a large part of those comments are basically questions that I haven't seen answered by anybody. First off, how many short-term rentals are there in the city of Atlanta that would be affected by this legislation? Secondly, how many complaints have been made, against which particular properties? How many of those are repeat complaints? Who owns and manages those properties? Are there groups that manage a whole bunch of them that complaints have been made against? What action has been taken on the complaints? I'm imagining that many of them are noise type complaints. What other solutions are possible? I think probably better enforcement of noise regulations would probably help. What kind of penalties are available in this current legislation? I didn't see in what I read, I saw no penalties for violation of this particular legislation. Now, there may be some in some other city code, but I didn't see it. Also, what are the tax implications of removing so many of these current short-term rentals? And I think Kathy mentioned grandfathering. The way the legislation is written, it prohibits grandfathering. So that basically means places that are already in business and may have been in business for some time are out of business. And this is kind of a bad time to, be putting more small businesses out of business, I would think. So those are my comments. I think it's, you know, in my opinion and the opinion of the all of our board members, it just doesn't make any sense. It's using an atom bomb instead of a fly swatter.
Thanks, Jim. And I've got the comments that you sent earlier that I'll include in the report back to the city. Trey Middleton, you are.
Hi there, good evening. So kind of echoing Kathy's comments. So I've been living in the Morningside area for about 4 years now and hosting on Airbnb. I have a carriage house in the back, hosting an apartment that's in the carriage house for about 2 years now. And then echoing Kathy's comments, a lot of my guests have been family members of other family that live in the Morningside area, like visiting family, right? So thinking through how this regulation would affect them being forced to stay in a hotel during the middle of a pandemic, it would be a bit of a challenge. So, but I agree, the regulation's a bit overkill for the fact that I live here, right? Live with the guests on site. I noticed if there's any issues and haven't had any issues in 2 years. So something like maybe a 2-day minimum, you know, to prevent events would be more reasonable than outright no Airbnb in the city. So just a thought.
Great, thank you. Jack, last comments. Last but not least. Go ahead.
Jack, you're still muted.
You know, this was just introduced today. It goes to CDHS. That's Matt. These comments are going to have the weight of a feather in this NPU. Write your council member and make them in writing to the council members. And this is far from a done deal. So, I mean, there's going to be a compromise.
Yeah, I think you're right. It is this month, all 25 NPUs are considering it. And I think there are going to be multiple voices. I don't think that we're going to end up with something as black and white as this. Okay, are there any other comments? I've taken some notes. I've got Jim's previous email, and I will get those comments to the city. Okay. One last item on the agenda, and these are NPU F bylaws, proposed changes, and also our policy sheet proposed changes. Let me load them up on the chat so that you can see the sheets if you haven't read them from your email that was sent earlier. And while I do that, Kay, do you want to begin the summary of what the changes we're proposing for the bylaws?
Largely, the changes are necessitated by the fact that we're living in a virtual world. So in the bylaw proposed changes, in Article 3, we incorporate that meetings can be either in person or virtual. And in the bylaws, we reference that voting will be a method established by policy for virtual meetings. So this is the process that we're testing tonight, will hopefully end up being in the policy sheet. We also changed to clarify that 2 individuals can co-share the secretary position, because that's our current practice. That's what we're doing. And we had a disagreement in the document with regard to ad hoc committees. In one place it said that the chair appointed ad hoc committees, and in another it said it required the consent of the NPU. So we've clarified that. And then on the policy sheet, we've changed the agenda order to move the consent agenda further up in the agenda so that the folks that are there for very straightforward variances can have their business heard and get on with it. with regard to the zoning committee, we've added a reference to virtual meetings. And we also, there was a lack of clarity about who actually can vote on the zoning committee. So we've made that change. With regard to the neighborhoods providing their input to the NPU on variances, we've specified the time frame in which they need to get those into Debbie so that the consent agenda and the variances can be ready to go forward on the agenda. And we had a few places in document retention policy that didn't reflect what we're actually doing. We do not keep documents on the website. We keep them on our Google Drive. And so we updated that to reflect what we're actually doing. And then again, in the policy sheet, as I mentioned, we have a new section that talks about virtual meetings, and that relies heavily on language that was proposed to us by the Department of City Planning. So that's the overview of the changes. Nothing too profound.
I posted both of the change documents on the chat, and they were distributed earlier. Tonight, we're only offering this as kind of a first read so that you all can get a feel for it and ask questions if you have any regarding the changes. Jim, I see your hand up. Do you have any questions? Or did I forget to take your hand down before?
I couldn't take it down. I attempted to and couldn't take it down, sorry.
Oh, okay, it's down. Anyone else have any questions? The timetable for the changes are on both proposed change sheets. We mentioned that we were going to make these changes at last month's meeting. We had the executive committee to review and discuss the changes on the 28th. Today is October 19th, and we're giving you notice on the changes themselves so that you can see them and have a month to think about them. It is our intent to vote on these at next month's meeting, to accept the revisions and then send an updated bylaws and policy sheet to the Department of City Planning for their acceptance and review, and with the hope that they will be effective on, or the bylaws will be effective on January 1st, the policy sheets to be effective actually on December 1st, which is a policy of the policy sheet. Last chance, any questions, any comments? Nothing substantive here, it's just a lot of cleanup. Okay, seeing none, I will ask if there's any other issues that need to come before the NPU tonight.
Debbie, this is Doug Young. Did we cover V20 136 or did I miss that?
That is property on Noble Drive?
Yes.
That was deferred. It was on the consent agenda and it was deferred.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Rich, Kay, are you seconding?
Sure.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, yeah, let's do it.
Aye.
The meeting's adjourned. It is 9:38 p.m.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
And thank you, everybody, for registering. That actually worked out better than I thought it would.
I haven't voted in person yet. Go down to the State Farm Arena. It's 10 minutes in and out. Free parking. Or Marta.
I saw an email today that Spin is offering $10 credits on election day so people can take a scooter to vote.
Oh, that's cute.
I can see you on a scooter, Debbie. No, I can't.
I already voted. You're late.
Thank you.
I like to see me
Good
out.
night,
of
all.
school, too. Good night, everybody. Tony and Leah, if you're still there, thank you. Doug, thanks. It's always good to have you here, and thank you for your comments on the rezoning request.